Greetings, fellow mathematicians. Let's investigate the Year 2 scope and sequence. Page 1 contains a whole year overview of the concepts taught in Year 2. A green arrow shows the links between essential related concepts. An orange arrow shows the essential prerequisite for further concepts. The concept name and level is the name and level used at a learning place, a teaching place. The abbreviated text identifies the Australian curriculum and New South Wales syllabus content descriptions. As you can see, the focus of number and algebra in Year 2 is adding and subtracting tens numbers and two-digit numbers, counting by tens on and off the decade, and using place value. The focus of multiplication and division in Year 2 is dividing in two ways, into groups of and into equal groups. Children divide into an array and then describe the array using multiplication. The focus of fractions and decimals is quartering shapes and groups, relating quartering groups to dividing into 4 equal parts. The measurement and geometry focus is on lines and vertices on regular and irregular two-dimensional shapes, and on surfaces and lines of three-dimensional objects. Children describe dimensions and then make a tape measure using informal units and centimetres, and use their tape measure to measure one dimension as length in informal units, metres and centimetres. They measure two dimensions as area using informal square units in an array. They measure three dimensions as volume and capacity. Using cubes, they measure the volume and capacity of three-dimensional objects with flat surfaces and sides. They construct a measuring device in liquid informal units and measure the volume and capacity of three-dimensional objects with curved surfaces. They investigate slides, flips and half and quarter turns and tell time to the quarter hour using their understanding of quartering shapes. Pages 2 to 5 contain a term-by-term sequence of concepts taught in Year 2. Each term presents essential prior concepts from the previous year and terms. Each term scope and sequence is divided into weeks, with essential prior concepts being taught first and essential related concepts being taught together. For example, counting forwards and backwards by tens, describing patterns counting by tens, adding and subtracting tens numbers counting by tens, and making a tape measure in tens are all taught at the same time. These are prior knowledge needed to count by hundreds, tens and ones, explain place value of and partition three-digit numbers, friends of 100, partitioning tens numbers and adding and subtracting tens numbers and two-digit numbers using place value. The weeks that new concepts are introduced are arbitrarily selected. Your teacher judgment will be vital to deciding when is an appropriate time for your students and how much time to spend continuing to investigate prior concepts. Some students may be ready to investigate new concepts before others. This will require differentiation. For example, you want to begin teaching adding and subtracting counting by tens. But A. 3 students do not yet understand friends of 10, 20 and any decade or two-digit place value. B. 4 cannot yet add and subtract single-digit numbers using place value. And C. 4 cannot yet count forwards and backwards by tens on the decade. All students can engage in the explicit teaching segment of the lesson that includes A. Friends of 10, 20 and any decade, two-digit place value. B. Adding and subtracting single-digit numbers using place value. C. Counting by tens on the decade. And adding and subtracting tens numbers counting by tens. What does differentiation using these sample levels of understanding look like? The explicit teaching segment of the lesson covers the levels of concepts that students will be investigating. Begin the explicit teaching using questioning at the lowest level of understanding, then proceeding through other levels. Using a different colour for each level allows students to identify and name their level by colour. For example, A. Friends of 10, 20 and any decade, 2-digit place value. B. Adding and subtracting single-digit numbers using place value. C. Counting by tens on the decade. And adding and subtracting tens numbers counting by tens. This explicit teaching segment of the lesson literally takes 10 to 15 minutes. The bulk of the lesson time is spent with children investigating at just beyond their current level of understanding. What does differentiation using these sample levels of understanding look like in the investigation and reflection segment? Students do not need to sit with a teacher or another adult just because they are learning at a different pace. As long as they are investigating a concept at just beyond their current level of understanding, every child can investigate independently. All students can sit next to a child who is investigating at a different level. For example, A. Friends of 10, 20 and any decade, 2-digit place value. B. Adding and subtracting single-digit numbers using place value. C. Counting by tens on the decade. And adding and subtracting tens numbers counting by tens. Children may be directed to their level by the teacher, or children look at the levels recorded on the board during explicit teaching. If one level is too easy, they look at the next level. If the next level is too easy, they look at the next level. They continue until they find the level that is just beyond their current understanding. Children use cards to generate numbers to investigate at their level, then the next level. They pause occasionally to explain their understanding to the child sitting next to them, regardless of that child's level of understanding. What does differentiation using these sample levels of understanding look like in problem solving? Children use their current understanding to investigate solving a problem. Problem solving provides opportunities for children to apply their developing understanding and further develops their understanding. Problems can be easily differentiated to suit the levels of understanding of your students. Children may be directed to the level of the problem to solve by the teacher, or children could look at the levels of the problem and select the level that is at their current level of understanding. If one level of the problem is too easy, they look at the next level. If the next level is too easy, they look at the next level until they find and solve the problem at their current understanding. Observing and questioning children as they investigate, listening as they explain their understanding to a friend, and collecting books at the end of each lesson all provide immediate assessment data which can then be used to inform future teaching to meet the specific learning needs of the children. The children's talk, writing and actions all display their current level of understanding. Thus, teaching and formative assessment are indivisible. But how do you initially know each child's current level of understanding? Check if each child has the understandings listed in the top part of the Term 1 scope and sequence. The following assessments could be used. As a subscriber to a Learning Place, a Teaching Place, you have automatic access to primary maths, where you will find questions similar to the questions above to assess student understanding across all concepts and all levels.